Hi. I got a tape I want to play.
In 1973, two Rhode Island art students, David Byrne and Chris France, formed a band named The Artistics.
I was in a band with Chris, the drummer, for a while.
Right.
And we sort of drifted into New York and then thought we'd have a serious try at a band.
Unable to find a third band member in New York, they convinced Chris's girlfriend, Tina Weymouth, to learn the bass guitar and enlisted her into the band. With David on guitar and vocals and Chris on drums, the three played their first show as Talking Heads in 1975, opening for the Ramones at CBGB's.
As soon as we had enough songs to play, 35 minutes, we auditioned. And I think we played the following week or something, and then like 3 weeks after that, we were on the cover of the Village Voice or something. And it was kind of like, gosh, did we ever get in the right place at the right time?
They played regularly at CBGB's with bands such as Television and Blondie, and as a result, were lumped into the punk genre.
I don't think anyone liked being called punk rockers, even though being lumped together and having this kind of handle made it easier for us all to be thought of as a movement and to be written about.
We had a very different sound back then. We were kind of like a little wind-up, musical toy box.
It was pretty angular and jittery, the whole performance, and it was a lot of nervousness involved in it. Nobody appeared to be like
totally comfortable.
In late '76, Sire Records founder Seymour Stein stumbled onto one of their shows and was quick to sign them.
There was a huge buzz on the Talking Heads. And, I went down at CB's, and I'm standing out there, and all of a sudden I hear, "When my love stands next to your love," and I said, "What is this?" This music was so hypnotic. I was being sucked into the room. Then I ran up after they were over. They had no crew, they had nothing, and I helped Tina, this beautiful young girl, take the stuff off the stage. I said, "You have to be on my label."
After adding a fourth member, the Modern Lovers' Jerry Harrison, on guitar and keyboard, they began recording their first album, 77. The album was a critical success, but didn't do well commercially. Stein felt that this was due to their association with punk.
Punk had bad connotations, so I tried to come up with a different phrase than punk, and because New York had been rather dormant in the years before all this action started taking place on the Bowery, I called it the New Wave.
Mommy, Daddy, come and look at me now. I'm a big man in a great big town. Years ago, who would believe it's true?
It worked very well, because suddenly, just overnight, we went from being a punk band to being a new wave band. We also got played on the radio after that.
I'm a lucky guy to live in my building. They all need buildings to up there my longest. All my bearings, all my there. My building has every convenience. It's gonna make life easy for me. Psycho killer, just to say.
Psycho Killer was a hit in several European countries and entered the U.S. Hot 100, thanks in part to the false accusation that the song was about the Son of Sam murders.
Columbia University co-ed Virginia Voskerichian was gunned down in March.
The killer police are looking for is called the .44 caliber killer because of the weapon he has used.
We are vain and we are blind. I hate people when they're not polite. Psycho killer, kiss kiss far better. Run, run away.
During a 1977 tour in London, Talking Heads met musician Brian Eno.
Baby's on fire, better throw her in the water.
Eno would go on to produce their next 3 albums, starting with 78's More Songs About Buildings and Food.
Here come the art fags.
Damn bad television! What a bad picture! Don't get upset! It's not a major disaster! There's nothing on tonight, he said. I don't know. Warning sign! Warning sign! I hear it, but I pay no mind. Hear my voice! Hear my voice! It's saying something and it's not very nice. Pay attention! Pay attention! I'm talking to you and I.
Eno's production resulted in tighter and funkier songs.
Pretty soon now, I will be bitter. Pretty soon now, you'll be a quitter. Pretty soon now, I will be bitter. You can't see it till it's finished.
More Songs included a cover of Al Green's Take Me to the River, which became their first top 30 hit in the U.S.
I don't know why I love it like I do. All the trouble that you put me through. There's 16 candles up there on my wall. Here am I, biggest fool of them. All I wanna know, can you tell me I love to
Talking Heads were now the new it band in new wave.
What do you think of the Talking Heads? They're great, they're great. Skinny ties are the order of the day.
They're like the true meaning of new wave, like the ideals of new wave. They represent it.
The show is sold out. Yes it is. It is. Is there standing room available? No, there's not. I ran all over the city looking for the Talking Heads album today and I couldn't find it. Was it sold out in all the stores? Sold out. I couldn't get it anywhere. Everywhere I looked for it.
Talking Heads have a new album. It's called Fear of Music. Talking Heads have a new album. It's called Fear of Music.
Fear of Music, released in '79, was darker and more experimental in tone.
Some people say not to worry about the hair. Some people never had experience with.
The album's most well-known song, Life During Wartime, was described by The New Yorker as apocalyptic swamp funk.
It had a subject and a point of view. I thought I'd write a song about urban guerrillas from the point of view of their daily lives, instead of from the point of view of their politics.
Heard of a van that's loaded with weapons, packed up and ready to go. Heard of some great sights up on a highway, a place where nobody knows. The sound of gunfire off in the distance, I'm getting used to it now. Lived in a brownstone, I lived in a ghetto, I've lived all over this town. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around.
Fear of Music was their most exploratory album to date, infused several musical genres.
I think the general consensus with the band was that we should take liberties whenever possible to contradict ourselves, or for David to contradict himself lyrically, whatever. On our new record, we have one song which is in a sort of Eagles, Linda Ronstadt style with the predictable Talking Heads twist, and then we have another song that's African-inspired music, Nigerian pop-style music.
Containing nonsense lyrics from Dadaist Hugo Ball and music influenced by Africa, E Zimbra would be the gateway to their following album.
Talking Heads have a new album. It's called Remain in Light. Talking Heads have a new album. Remain in Light.
Trying to act casual, can't stop. I might end up in the hospital. I'm changing my shape, feel like an accident. They're back to explain my experience. They said,
Like E Zimbra, Remain in Light was heavily influenced by Fela Kuti and incorporated West African-inspired polyrhythms.
Them go bluff you, waste your time. Them go run you up, them go run you down. Them go tire your body and then tire your whole mind. Them go say no change for 50 cocoa.
Remain in Light was largely built from scratch in the studio. The initial music was conceived by the band through long instrumental jam sessions. Eno would then re-record, chop up, and loop his favorite segments, which Byrne would write lyrics to.
Humiliated.
The album is considered by many critics as one of the most innovative albums of all time. However, it is still best known for their TV Preacher-inspired single, Once in a Lifetime.
For this last record, I got a lot of ideas from listening to evangelists on the radio here. There's an awful lot of religious stations in the States at the moment.
On Sundays.
Yeah.
Thanks in part to the iconic music video, the song has grown in stature over the years and is often cited as one of the best songs of the 80s.
And you may ask yourself,
how do I work this?
And you may ask yourself,
where is that large automobile?
And you may find yourself without a beautiful house, without a beautiful wife. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
Letting the days go by, let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by, water flowing underground into the blue again. After the money's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground, same as it ever was.
To capture the full sound of the album, Talking Heads toured with an extended 9-piece band, including Parliament Funkadelic keyboardist Bernie Worrell and Frank Zappa guitarist Adrian Belew, who had recorded numerous guitar solos on the album.
What this new music we've been doing is about seems to be about having as many people play as is possible, as you can afford. It also means we can play more in the spirit of what we've recorded, although everything's not exactly what's on the record.
Right.
But it's a lot of fun, too. Frees me to do other things. I can dance around if I want to. So, yeah, I enjoy it a lot.
It would be 3 years before they released their next album. In the interim, David Byrne and Brian Eno released their album My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. While Tina and Chris formed a new band called the Tom Tom Club. Their single, Genius of Love, would later become one of the most sampled songs in hip-hop.
We're the chiefs of relief, contain the wild beast. The finesse of the west, the masterpiece of the east. The bars of cars, the lord of afford. The ones with the platinum vocal cord.
Talking Heads also released their first live album. The name of this band is Talking Heads, a double album compiled of recordings from '77 to '81. In 1983, Talking Heads recorded their 5th studio album, the synth and funk heavy Speaking in Tongues. The songs were shorter and poppier, and they recorded their first U.S. top 10 hit with Burning Down the House. Their synth-pop single, This Must Be the Place, didn't make much of a splash at the time, but has since gained popularity in the last decade, perhaps due to the multiple inclusions in film and covers by indie bands.
Nonsense, This Must Be the Place is by the Talking Heads.
No, it's by Arcade Fire.
Trust me, you're delusional.
The band supported the album with their famous Stop Making Sense tour, which was documented by filmmaker Jonathan Demme. Today, Stop Making Sense is widely regarded as the greatest music concert film of all time.
What made you think of having the musicians come out one at a time? Well, if the curtain opened and everything was there, there would be nowhere to go. It tells the story of the band, and it gets more dramatic and physical as it builds up. It's like 60 Minutes on acid.
The film features the band's energetic performance, alongside memorable set pieces, such as the lamp dance, and Byrne's famous Big Soup.
suit. I like symmetry and geometric shapes. I wanted my head to appear smaller, and the easiest way to do that was to make my body bigger. Because music is very physical, and often the body understands it before the head.
Stop making sense. Stop making sense. Stop making sense. Make it sense.
Stop Making Sense had a big effect on the way the band was perceived and the success of the band. People could go to see it and didn't have to worry about being gobbed on by punks or whatever they thought was going to happen to them. It seemed to catapult the band's popularity in a kind of surprising way.
It would turn out to be the band's last tour.
It was like, once it was on film, it was like, I felt like David sort of said, well, this is going to tour for us. It seemed like after that, David wanted to do films and act, and that he didn't want to do the band anymore.
In '85, at the peak of their popularity, Talking Heads released Little Creatures. This time around, Byrne wanted to explore themes of Americana.
Excuse me, I've been researching indigenous folk music of Springfield.
Giving up their funk sound, the album is made up of short, straightforward pop rock songs. It would become their best-selling album and featured 3 more hits for the band. In 1986 saw the release of True Stories, a film written, directed, and starring David Byrne.
What are you going to do next? A project with songs based on true stories from tabloid newspapers. It's like 60 Minutes on acid. I'll bet.
Most people around here have eaten dinner already. Don't want to be late. Know what I mean? Or do you?
Talking Heads provided the soundtrack, with many of the songs being performed by actors in the movie.
I am the king of the world, the boss of the boys and girls. You can live to 110 if you listen to what I'm saying. Hey now, hey now, hey now.
Talking Heads released their album of the same name to coincide with the film. Overall, a weak album, True Stories did include the great single Wild Wild Life, which would become the band's last hit. In 1988, they released their last album, the underrated Naked. Like Remain in Light, Naked was influenced by African music. But this time, they hired a slew of African musicians to play on the record, along with guest stars such as Johnny Marr.
Once there were parking lots, now it's a peaceful oasis. You got it, this was a Pizza Hut, now it's all covered with daisies. You got it.
Talking Heads went on hiatus until '91, when they released their last single, Sax and Violins. Later that year, Talking Heads officially announced that they had broken up.
But I think eventually the tensions and the gripes and the backstage grumbling and all that sort of thing got to a point where it just became kind of impossible to carry on. And rather than push it further until it affected the music, we parted ways.
The deal with Talking Heads is that David really doesn't want to perform with the rest of us, okay? That's the deal.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?